Hello and welcome to The Big Question. I'm Nisha Poddar. Today we are asking you one important question that you really use on a day-to-day basis. That is the UPI payments. Is it a convenience or is it a menace? That's the big question that we are trying to find an answer to in this discussion that we are going to have. To give you a background, if you have a UPI app and you use it for transactions, you must check on your list of autopay transactions that you have knowingly signed up for. Not just that, even in cases of EMI, lender repayments, or merchant payments, where your payments have been completed, be vigilant of any recurring requests of payments from those same lenders or merchants. A rising number of fraudulent transactions by UPI apps has really alarmed NPCI, which is, remember, responsible for forming the operating guidelines for the payment apps. NPCI is taking steps to prevent the misuse of certain features on the UPI apps for unscrupulous transactions that really cause the financial loss to the citizens of the country who are using the UPI transactions just like you and me. Now, these are really centered around two specific features that we are going to talk about today. Like autopay, where you sign up for a recurring subscription or automatic payments of bills on a repeated basis, and the collect call option, where a transaction is generated not by the payer but by the receiver. Now, sources do suggest to NDTV Profit that NPCI intends to ban the collect option for smaller merchants where the cases of misuse may be higher, and on autopay, it's reiterating the industry to follow the guidelines for proper display of auto pay options, especially for the subscription-based entertainment online apps, so that the customers are not duped into making recurring payments without their knowledge. So this is the big question. Are the UPI payments, some of those features, are they a convenience or a menace? In fact, we have a battery of experts who are going to really decipher and bring in their expertise to this particular discussion. Let me welcome on the show Sunil Kulkarni, who's the FinTech advisor, former RBI committee member on digital payments and digital ecosystem, Dr. Deepali Pant Joshi, who's the former ED, RBI, and also macroeconomic expert. We have Vibhav Hathi, who's the co-founder of One Card, Sachin Taparia, who's the chairman and founder of Local Circles, and Rana Durjoy Talukdar, who's partner and payment sector's leader at EY India. So, lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this very important discussion. My first question is going to Mr. Kulkarni, Sunil Kulkarni. Having seen this particular ecosystem and also been very well entrenched with the fintech world also, what do you think about this big question? Is it now more of a convenience, or the trust factor is slipping on UPI payments and certain features, which is causing a menace?
Yeah, thank you for bringing me here. I wanted to just mention that this has been brought for convenience, and clearly you would have multiple features that would be coming even later on also, that are all for customer convenience. What is also required is, along with the convenience, there is an awareness that needs to be built in, because if you take the collect call, today, none of the banks or none of the prepaid payment provider require any MPIN or any password to get credit into their system. Whereas bulk of the collect calls where frauds happen, the fraudster calls up and say, I am putting money into your account and please enter the PIN. And what happens is that when you enter the PIN, your account gets debited, and after that starts the chain of the frauds. So basically, whether it is collect call or it is auto pay, the awareness needs to be built in and constantly updated, because unless we do that, it will be difficult to communicate the entire message to masses. So that's my answer is that it is for convenience, but with a caution that it needs to have sufficient awareness.
Right. So we need to balance that act. Vibhav, you are from the industry, and while operating and navigating through the various complexities of this new technology that we have got used to, as a person who really operates, who's founded a company in this direction, how do you see the situation? How easy or difficult is it to have confidence in the UPI system, which has definitely brought about the financial inclusion that we always wanted?
So thank you for having me. I think as Sunil also said, this is for convenience. This has clearly, accelerated the growth of digital payments. And as a TPAP, what we strongly believe is that right from the time that you certify with the network, when you want to start a TPAP, after that, the process of the regular operating guidelines that the network publishes, these have now created a mechanism for establishing trust amongst consumers by bringing newer and newer security features over time. So, as an industry participant, our role is to ensure that we increase literacy, we drive awareness, and we continue to follow whatever regulations, whether the regulator or NPCI brings in, so that the ecosystem improves at a base level. And yes, it is fundamentally a convenience for all the citizens and digital payments.
So yes, what you said is also resonating from a lot of industry participants that I've spoken to. In fact, let's take an EY view. What, according to you, is going to be the impact on the fintech, especially the payment aggregators? And we have three in the listed space, like Paytm. We have MobiKwik as well as Pine Labs. So these are on the aggregator side, where the regulators feel the onus is much higher.
Sure. So I would say that this selective sunsetting of UPI P2P collect request, I don't believe it's going to materially have a negative impact for any of the listed players that you mentioned. Largely because P2P collect in itself was never a large revenue driver, right? Because all these companies with largely a merchant-centric business model have driven monetization through, of course, merchant payments, value-added services, lending, of course, POS solutions, subscriptions, so on and so forth, right? Obviously, all of those have nothing to do with P2P collect, right? So especially, say, someone like a Pine Labs, which is entirely a merchant-focused B2B business, will have almost no impact. Paytm and MobiKwik, because they have presence on both the consumer and the merchant side, they might see some drop in user engagement levels. But then again, that is offset by much lower fraud complaints potentially, superior trust matrices, and of course much better regulatory optics. So overall, I would probably say that it's a strong risk control measure. Certainly not a business model disruption in any way, and the overall net impact is probably neutral to, I would say, mildly positive for the listed payment companies.
Right. So yes, it restores confidence. Dipali, we have spent a lot of time and energy in making our banking system as fit and proper as it is today. What are the learnings for the fintech universe from the journey we have seen in the banking world, which should be taken up for it to really gain much more trust?
Well, Nisha, that's a very interesting question because there are two strong prongs which go across all industries. One is the acquisition of a customer, the retention of that customer, and woven into this is customer protection. So this would be the first prong. And the second prong is increasing the literacy of the customer and enabling him to navigate this universe. Now, you know that RBI has over time been enhancing the unified payments interface, and it is the single largest retail payment system in India. Not just in terms of volume of transactions, but it is the most inclusive mode of payment in India. I mean, even if you go to buy chana, murmura, or you go to buy anything, you can spend up to 5 lakh, you can spend up to $5 eating whatever you want to eat, pav bhaji, for instance, and you will still be able to pay for it. And the whole system of sweets and Madam No Change has gone away. And as one pretty young thing told me this morning, it makes me feel like a man. I don't need to carry anything but my phone. So it's been very liberating. But if this thing, if we allow frauds to be leveraged through the system, because there are always people ready to game any system, and it's the financial illiteracy largely and older people who are very prone to these frauds, where you're just told that, they can't make out the difference also sometimes between these requests. So all that is being done is nothing is being abolished. The pull thing is being pushed out, and the push requests are coming in that you scan a QR code. It's not just that, you won this prize or you've got this money and you just send me your PIN. Because the minute I give you access to my PIN code, I give you access to my entire account and say, come feel free to clean it. So then the UPI system itself is endangered because it's no longer safe and more secure. And once that everything runs again, as I was saying, the second prong, everything, whether it's FinTech's, whether it's banking, it all runs on trust. So once
Yes.
that trust is eroded, then you have a problem. Now, RBI constantly puts out these visions, for 2025, its core theme was e-payments for everyone, everywhere, every time. And it said that we will give you secure, fast, convenient, accessible, affordable e-payment system. UPI is all of that. It also gives you integrity, inclusion, innovation, everything. And now there's also been an internationalization. But the Central Payments Fraud Information Registry has
Yes.
shown an increasing trend in frauds related to this collect feature. And therefore, it's something has to be done about it. You can't just say that it's isolated, but it is something which is dangerous, because now you're looking at the lowest deciles of the population. You're linking the RuPay cards to UPI, and you're also allowing processal mandates with single block and multiple debits. So if you have a huge sum of money set aside and you even forget, as you very rightly pointed out, that you're making recurring payments to the same person, then you're endangering the whole system. And
Yes.
when you're going to expand the scope of UPI for cross-border transactions, the mind boggles at the kind of problems that can arise in that. So I would again stress that yes, very important for financial
Yes.
inclusion to build a safe system.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, Dr. Dipali Pant Joshi, you have mentioned so many important points, many takeaways on that. But let me take it to Sachin Taparia then. Sachin, 2 points that we mentioned and we broke the story on is that, first of all, greater vigilance and caution on auto pay by NPCI, that is being reiterated to the industry. And the second and the more important one is that the call of collect option, that being sunsetted for a certain category of merchants. How do you see this really, the two features working in tandem when it comes to more unscrupulous kind of transactions on UPI and endangering also the confidence that is restored on this particular mode of payment?
So, very good question there, Nisha. Basically, these are two issues that we have escalated over the years to RBI. The first one is, if you look at the collect issue, essentially, per our last survey, 1 in 5 families in India who use UPI had one or more instances of fraud in the last 3 years, where somebody in the household had a fraudulent transaction through UPI, right? So that's a revealing statistic. Out of that, 50% of these users did not file any complaint, right? So any government data that is out there on fraud is understated, right? The second important data point, 40% of these complaints were basically that a link was shared. I was supposed to get credit, it got debited, right? So that's right there for you is the reason as to why implementing this collect makes a lot of sense, because it is live, it is real, these frauds are happening. And we do not have today, the infrastructure in the country to be able to handle these complaints very effectively. So I think if we solve this at the source, essentially through policy measure, I think it will help solve the problem to a large extent. So the collect makes a lot of sense. The auto pay, however, is somewhat different. It applies to large merchants. What we have been finding over the last 2 to 3 years is a lot of complaints related to dark patterns on different payment platforms in India, including banks, basically, where essentially the consumer finds it's very easy to sign up for a service or a subscription, but it's extremely difficult for them to be able to cancel it. So finding that option to cancel is just not there anywhere, right? So we have had cases where they just could not find on the app of the banks also an option to go and unsubscribe from a service that they thought that they were just getting the first month on trial, but the charges continued over a long period of time.
Right.
So it's very real and something that needs to be solved, right? So essentially what this will do is it will give more power to the consumer to be able to go in and select what they want to do, right? Something very similar happened in 2017-18 when we had escalated this issue on recurring charges on credit and debit cards, and then the entire OTP, and especially with international cards, a lot of issues were happening, international merchants rather. So I think both of these are pro-consumer measures. I think the only thing that has to be watched out here by the RBI is the peer-to-peer payments that are happening that make UPI very, very convenient for the consumer, right? Where you scan a QR code easily and you're able to pay. That core functionality is not impacted, because then that will drive volumes and whatnot if that peer-to-peer, because many of these merchants, small merchants, they are taking money in their personal account basically, so they're not doing a business to consumer transaction. So I think how that gets impacted while all these safety and trust measures, very needed measures, are implemented is something I think that they'll have to figure out.
All right, so we have already really stated that there is a lot of convenience, but menace in certain conditions, and therefore it is a big talking point. Vibhav, you are, representing the industry, unfortunately, on this panel, so you will have to do the heavy lifting on this particular question. Auto pay is a great mechanism. I use it on a regular basis, and I'm not bothered about my monthly payments. It goes on time. It is just so convenient. But as Sachin was pointing out, there are many unscrupulous activities that really take place where a lot of uneducated older people and even people in rural areas and also socially lower are the ones who are really losing their hard-earned money. What is the solution for this?
So I think, as I think everybody has stated, getting the consumer to be aware and repeatedly doing it in various methods, whether it be visual, whether it could be street plays that could happen in tier 4, tier 5, 6 towns, whether it be people coming together and creating a joint campaign, whether it be bank, regulators, networks, fintech industry. We also have to play a role and contribute to the growing the awareness. So that is, I think, at the bedrock. Second thing, what has happened is, once the consent has been given, how do you create a visibility and a transparency so that consumers know what is coming as a debit instruction to their account every month or every periodicity, and the ease of disabling it or pausing it? And the third leg is the grievance redressal. In case I have something which account was not supposed to be debited, but got debited. How can I raise my grievance? How can it be solved? And that is where I think a lot of work has been done by various participants. Now, grievance raising through the TPAP or to NPCI or to various other fora is now easily doable compared to an earlier. So, when you are establishing literacy, supporting and creating a consent revocability, and making it easier to solve any grievance. These three things, and that is where fintech industry, TPAPs will also have to play their role in ensuring that we get all these three things taken up as a unified platform in a way.
Right. So I'll take this question to Sunil. While we are discussing auto pay, the collect call option, which is, as per our sources, getting sunsetted for smaller merchants. Sunil, how will this really impact the industry and also restore the confidence?
Yeah. So I think somebody has mentioned, I think ENY gentleman has mentioned that the overall volume of collect call is insignificant compared to the push payment. And what we are trying to do here is just make one particular payment reduced, but you do have QR code. So if somebody is sending you, somebody is wanting to get money, he can send a QR code, and if it goes to your photo album, you can scan and pay up to 2,000 rupee. Even there is a restriction put. What is not going to change is a direct P2P. I think as Sachin has mentioned, that will it impact say a P2P? No. Direct P2P, which is the push payment, is not impacted by any curb on collect calls. So the transaction for a merchant, even he is a small merchant who was sending collect call, he could still send QR code, or the customer can send a P2P message payment directly. So to my mind, there is going to be virtually no major impact on customer behavior nor on merchant in terms of curbs placed on collect call. On the other hand, the frauds, which were bulk of the frauds were collect call frauds, because as I mentioned earlier that you are the call is coming to because of lottery or anything, and they are saying put your PIN and then you get your account debited, and then starts a multiple transaction layering, and that entire cybercrime is busy with these frauds, trying to see how that finally has landed, and sometimes it lands on some of the corporate VCs or payment aggregator who have nothing to do with it, and their accounts get frozen. So that's also a problem to business. So the moment this fraud is taken care of, I think the trust factor will overall increase. So I would say this is a welcome change.
All right, so this will be a welcome change, and of course, now that it's on NPCI's radar, probably the regulator as well as NPCI would keep a watch on the fraudulent activities on certain features. Now, I want to pose this question to Rana Durjoy, that there is one particular doubt though, that a lot of smaller payment aggregators are heavily dependent on this particular segment. What is the impact on some of the smaller ones who really operate in the area of smaller merchants' payments?
Yeah, so for that, I think it's important to understand that who is really going to be impacted, right? Now, what NPCI has put an end to is P2P collect request, right? Now, when we say P2P collect request, of course, in an informal manner, P2P collect request is also used by small micro merchants, right? What's called a P2PM, or a person to merchant, kind of a payment. It's used for informal, informal lending, so on and so forth. Now, so when you look at that particular segment and you look at the broader supply chain ecosystem, there would of course be some sort of an impact, right? Having said that, you would probably also see that there'll be a natural migration to QR payments or push payments, and even a natural shift to moving, say, these so-called micro merchants or non-verified merchants, so to speak, into a proper merchant onboarding journey, right? Given all of that, we believe that even for smaller companies who would be, say, largely supplying or addressing this particular long tail merchant base, even their business would not be substantially impacted, because we have to bear in mind that UPI Collect ultimately is just about 3 to 4% of the total UPI volumes in the country, right? Irrespective of whether you are a small, or I mean, if you're a small merchant or a very large merchant. So hence that impact remains very limited.
All right. From what you said, the aspect is clear that all these measures and mechanisms will only restore more faith in the UPI system and therefore will benefit the entire ecosystem. Sachin, I wanted to also ask you, while the regulator is really looking at this particular aspect very closely and the industry is aware of the problems that persist, are there any mechanisms or learnings or even suggestions that should be incorporated?
So, really, in addition to what the RBI is doing, I think the Ministry of Consumer Affairs and the Consumer Protection Regulator is working on resolving some of these dark patterns by creating awareness around them. So I think if we got RBI to work closely with CCPA, then I think we can possibly get all the key payment platforms as well as the banking platforms to become free of these dark patterns.
All right, and Dr. Dipali, last word to you. You made several points and those were very valuable. But after this whole discussion, of course, RBI's intent has been for financial inclusion. You've been well entrenched in the banking system. We know that trust and confidence is very important. Awareness is very important. Any last final word very quickly?
No, the last final words, of course, again, RBI is working on this. There is something called the financial markets infrastructure, for the payments financial market infrastructure, which are internationally supported guidelines, and RBI is very active there. Again, the two things which come to mind are, of course, increasing digital literacy, increasing online dispute resolution mechanisms, and beefing up faith in the system. Once that happens, and I don't think that this will impact the business model at all. There will be no cash burn, because it's not a huge revenue stream even for the smallest merchants who will get used to QR codes. I mean, you'll be surprised at the smaller shops which display QR codes. So I do not think that this will in any way be harmful, that it will be helpful in a big way, I'm certain. That's all from me.
Thank you. Those were very positive words and looking forward as well. So thank you so much, ladies, gentlemen, for joining in with your deep perspective on a matter which really affects all of us on a day-to-day basis and several times in a day for people like me. Thank you so much for joining in with your perspective. So that was the whole discussion on how UPI payments and the trust factor in UPI can be built further by really arresting the fraudulent transactions in some of the features which are not working in tandem for restoring trust in the system. But otherwise, it's a big convenience. That's the house view coming in from the experts. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Big Question. Thank you so much.